James Bond is one of the most famous film franchises in the world, with its films amassing over 7 billion in box office sales. In one of their most successful films, Casino Royale, they have one of the biggest on-screen showings of poker that has ever been seen. Now me, I'm a poker player, and I've even got this tacky gold poker chip to prove it.
Sensational.
In this video, I'll be breaking down the hands themselves and giving a poker player's opinion on whether this is a realistic showing of the game. The blinds are 5,000, 10,000, you know, pretty small game. I regularly play games like that.
Very false.
We go 4 ways to the flop in what looks to be a limped pot. The flop is 9-8-5, all hearts. This means that there are flushes on board, there are straights on board, potential sets, potential 2 pairs, an action flop for sure. Now, from the end of this scene, we know that Le Chiffre, the villain, he has pocket deuces. That's right, he has the duckies, 2 2s. After it checks round to him, Le Chiffre goes for a 50,000 bet. This is a pot-sized bet into 4 players. Now, with the deuces, without a heart particularly, I would definitely not recommend this bet. With the board being all hearts and so connected, it is very likely that a player is going to have a flush or a straight or a set or even 1 pair beats him on this board. Honestly, this is pretty horror. You know, you wouldn't see this in the big 220 on PokerStars on a Tuesday evening. You'd get eaten up. Facing this 50,000 bet, Bond opts for the call. We don't know what Bond has at this stage, but one would imagine that he has something in the vicinity of a straight, or more likely from the end of the scene, a flush or at least 1 high heart. Now the turn is a repeat 9. This means that any sets on the flop have now become a full house, a very strong hand. Any flushes are still feeling pretty confident, and some of the hands that would have been 2 pair, like 9-8 on the flop, have just made a full house as well. Le Chiffre opts to bet 100,000. This is about 75% of the pot. If I didn't like the bet on the flop, I definitely do not like the bet on the turn. At this point, it feels like Bond is going to have a very strong hand, and this bet is only going to be losing you money in the long run. Now it's at this point in proceedings that we see the most unrealistic part of this hand. James Bond finds himself distracted by a very beautiful woman that comes over to discuss with him. It's well documented that those of us that regularly play poker, they don't talk to women, they don't go outside, they just sit in their room all day. Very unrealistic. Rate this part of the scene 0 out of 10. Now, facing this bet and after the distraction that he had just had, Bond flicks in the call and we are going to a river. Before we go to the river, this is a new style of video for my channel, so if you enjoy, please do let me know in the comments down below, and like, subscribe, all that stuff. Sorry for interrupting, back to the video. Now the river is the miracle 2 of hearts for Le Chiffre. This is the absolute perfect card for him. Not only does it give him the 5% chance of the miracle full house, it also means that if Bond had a high card with a heart, like the Ace of Hearts or the King of Hearts, he has just made a flush. This is an unbelievable card for Le Chiffre. Now on this river, continuing his story, Le Chiffre goes for a bet of around 200,000. This bet, honestly, I think I hate it about as much as I hate the previous bets. He has just hit his miracle card, the card that happens 1 in 20 times. It is obvious that Bond is going to have a very strong hand at this point. At this point in proceedings, I would opt for an overbet for sure. This means that you want to bet more than the size of the pot. The strong hands that Bond has to call are going to want to call anyway. Sometimes Le Chiffre is still beaten in this situation, but for the most part, now he's going to have the best hand and you want to get maximum value. So I would prefer to bet around the size of 400,000 or at least 300,000. He's only bet about 60% of the pot, which, you know, after hitting that card, you could go for more. Facing this bet, Jimmy B flicks in the call, gets shown the bad news, the binked full house, and he mucks his hand. Now, what are my final thoughts on this scene? My final thoughts on this scene are, it's pretty good. You know, all jokes aside, obviously this is meant for a wide audience. It's about the action of the hand. It is not about just how realistic it is. Overall, I think I'd give it about a 6 out of 10. Was it a realistically played hand? No, absolutely not. Not at all. This is very unlikely to have happened. However, you know, sometimes people do make bad plays and they get lucky. I wouldn't know about that. Queen. Oh my god.
So that was a fucking lie.
But in terms of the acting, in terms of how it was shot, in terms of the scene as a whole, it's a strong scene.